What's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of LBFT Season 2. This is episode 12 of LBFT Season 2. For this episode, we're going to be talking about one of last night's game, Sunday Night Football. Talking about the New Orleans Saints and the Cincinnati Bengals game. If you hadn't watched the game, the New Orleans Saints, led by Drew Brees, made a dominant 51-14 road win against the Cincinnati Bengals. Basically, ramrodded the Cincinnati Bengals at their home turf in the city of Cincinnati. So without any further ado, let's get into this. Let's talk about Drew Brees for a minute. He was absolutely spectacular. 265 passing yards, 3 touchdowns, 0 interceptions, 88.0 incompletion percentage, 150.4 in QBR, completed 22 out of his 25 passing attempts. This dude is on another level. I mean, a lot of people are starting to consider him to be the leading league MVP candidate, the front runner for this year's league MVP race. I mean, he's spectacular. He's nothing short of sensational last night. Absolutely spectacular. I'm going to get into more of Drew Brees later on in this episode. But anyway, Drew Brees, awesome last night. Mark Ingram cannot be ignored. 13 carries, 3 receptions, 162 total yards, including 104 in rushing and 58 in receiving. Only had 1 receiving touchdown. Averaged 8.0 yards rushing and averaged 19.8 yards receiving. This dude is special. Mark Ingram, special. And let's not go over Alvin Kamara. He also cannot be ignored, like Mark Ingram. 12 carries, 4 receptions, 2 rushing touchdowns, 102 total yards, including 56 in rushing, and 46 in receiving. Average 4.7 yards in rushing and average 11.5 yards in receiving. Michael Thomas was also really good yesterday. 8 receptions, 70 yards, receiving yards, 2 touchdowns, average 8.8 yards in receiving. Basically, the New Orleans Saints offense, they were unstoppable yesterday. They were absolutely sensational. They were incredible. They might be considered the best team in the NFC. The best one-loss team in the NFC. Better than the one-loss Los Angeles Rams. Yeah, that's right, I said it. The Los Angeles Rams. An impressive Los Angeles Rams team. With Jared Goff, with Todd Gurley, and with Brandon Cooks, who, by the way, were really good. The New Orleans Saints are basically the best one-loss team in the NFC. Better than the Los Angeles Rams with 1 loss. Let's just call it as it is. Just the way they performed yesterday. Let's talk about the Cincinnati Bengals offense for a minute or two. Andy Dalton was relatively pedestrian yesterday. Had 153 passing yards, 1 touchdown, 0 interceptions, or 2 interceptions, I'm sorry. 60.0 in completion percentage, 61.0 in QBR. He was relatively pedestrian. He wasn't that impressive. Joe Mixon, he was also relatively pedestrian. 11 carries, 61 rushing yards, never had 1 touchdown, and averaged 5.5 yards in receiving. He wasn't really that impressive. I mean, and that's all the players that I have because the rest of the other players that I didn't mention, they weren't They were just basically, they just got ramrodded by the New Orleans Saints defense, who, by the way, showed up. They showed up big time yesterday, and I'll get into more of them in a little bit. But let's talk more about the Cincinnati Bengals, particularly, or no, just the Cincinnati Bengals overall. They got dismantled at home against the New Orleans Saints. I mean, they didn't show up to give the New Orleans Saints a loss, or at the very least, give them a run for their money yesterday. I mean, there is no wonder that that this morning they fired their defensive coordinator after last night's game. And do you know why what was I going to... Oh, yeah. I was going to say, do you know one of the reasons why they fired their defensive coordinator? Because, listen to this. They are second to last in points allowed, dead last in yards allowed, dead last against the pass, second to last against the run, and they gave up over 500 total yards in back-to-back-to-back games to the Kansas City Chiefs, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and the New Orleans Saints. And not only did the Cincinnati Bengals fired their defensive coordinator this morning, Marvin Lewis is expected to take over the defensive play calling duties. I cannot believe that I actually said those words out loud. Is that the world we're living in right now? You mean to tell me that the same Marvin Lewis, who by the way, and I mentioned this before in another episode where I talked about the Kansas City Chiefs' dominant win against the Cincinnati Bengals. You could go watch that episode. There's an iNotification right up here that you can press on and watch that episode. But I mentioned in that episode that Marvin Lewis has been the head coach for the Cincinnati Bengals for 15 years. And he appeared in only 7 playoff games and has never won any of them. Not one. He has not had one playoff game in his 15 plus year career as the head coach for the Cincinnati Bengals. That alone is an atrocity, is a travesty. The same Marvin Lewis, who had never had one playoff game in his 15 plus year career with the Cincinnati Bengals, is taking over the defensive play calling duties for the Cincinnati Bengals defense. You mean to tell me that Marvin Lewis dude? You're telling me that he's going to be in charge of the defense from now on? That Marvin Lewis? Man, oh man. Now don't get me wrong. Marvin Lewis is a good coach. He knows how to coach the game. He knows how to coach a team to win a game. He understands how the football world works, how the game works as a head coach. I'm not doubting that whatsoever. But what I am doubting, though, or what I don't like, though, is the fact that he's been the head coach for the Cincinnati Bengals for 15 plus years and had never won one playoff game. Now, it's not really his fault for that to happen. It's mainly on the damn ownership for the Cincinnati Bengals. You know, I'm trying to keep my composure when it comes to this subject. But if I were a Cincinnati Bengals fan, if I were a fan of the Cincinnati Bengals, I couldn't even tell you how disgusted I would be if Marvin Lewis is expected to take over the defensive play calling duties. I wouldn't even tell you how angry I would be if I were a Cincinnati Bengals fan. I feel so bad for Cincinnati Bengals fans. They deserve better than this. They deserve better than this, than what they got right now. Marvin Lewis taking over the defensive play calling duties? No. I wouldn't have it. I would go off if I were a Bengals fan, if that happens. But I digress. The Cincinnati Bengals offense, let's talk about it. It got pushed around constantly by the New Orleans Saints defense, who again showed up big time yesterday. The New Orleans Saints defense, they have heavily improved from last week's game against the Los Angeles Rams. By holding the Cincinnati Bengals of offense under 20 points, they performed very well. Intercepted the ball twice, sacked Andy Dalton 4 times. I mean, they succeeded in what they had to do. They just got the job done yesterday. I mean, the Cincinnati Bengals offense, they couldn't do anything to catch up with the high-powered New Orleans Saints offense, led by the great Drew Brees. I mean, the New Orleans Saints, I mean, the New Orleans Saints were too, they were, I'm trying to say it right. Forgive me. But for the New Orleans Saints were too difficult for the Cincinnati Bengals to overcome. I mean, their offense is just too great for the Cincinnati Bengals defense to overcome, especially that really big scoring, thing. 51 points in Cincinnati against a visiting team. Again, there is no wonder why the Cincinnati Bengals fired their defensive coordinator, like I mentioned earlier in this episode. So I already mentioned the New Orleans Saints defense being heavily improved from last week when they were against a very legit Los Angeles Rams. Yeah. Anyway, so, and of course, let's talk about the New Orleans Saints offense. It is not to be ignored. They were balling yesterday. And Drew Brees and the crew, I mean, they are absolutely, positively no joke whatsoever. They basically ensure that everyone knows they are not to be trifled with. They wanted to make sure that everyone knows that they are not to be trifled with the way that they performed against the Bengals at their home turf yesterday. They had to let everybody in the NFL know that they are not a team, that they are a force to be reckoned with. That they were outstanding. Absolutely outstanding. The New Orleans Saints offense was yesterday. Sorry. Now, after saying all those things about the New Orleans Saints, let me say this. I am finally ready to concede that Drew Brees is the front runner for the league MVP race. Yep, there I go. There I go saying it. I'm giving it to Drew Brees after seeing last night's game against the Bengals. I got to give it to him. He's now the leading MVP candidate for me. I have been holding on to Patrick Mahomes as the leading candidate to win the MVP, to win the league MVP this year, until I saw Drew Brees perform yesterday. The way he performed. Now the way he performed last week against the Los Angeles Rams, to me, that was just a setup for what he can do against really good teams. That was just a setup for me to see what Drew Brees can do from here on out. And after seeing this game last night, or yesterday I should say, I got to give it to Drew Brees. He's now the leading candidate to win the MVP, to win the league MVP this year. For me, I now consider him to be the leading candidate to win the league MVP. I'm now giving it to him. And getting into more of Drew Brees, I saw articles where they show that Drew Brees, who now has 509 passing touchdowns in his entire career, he has passed Brett Favre, who had 508 in his career, for the second most career passing touchdowns, only behind Peyton Manning for the most career passing touchdowns in 539. 539 passing touchdowns in Peyton Manning's career when he was in the NFL. That means that Drew Brees has 30 more passing touchdowns left to tie Peyton's all-time passing touchdown record. Let me repeat that again. Drew Brees needs to have 30 more passing touchdowns left to tie Peyton's career passing touchdown record. He needs 30 more to tie that record that is held by Peyton Manning. And when he does that, he's now the all-time touchdown passer, if that's the right title. I don't know, but anyway. Getting into more of the New Orleans Saints. Now, I don't know if I mentioned this. Maybe I didn't mention it in any of the episodes in this second season so far, but I have mentioned it on my Twitter page, at Logan Battles. You can add me on there, or follow me on there. I made some tweets a few days ago where I said, I'm picking a few days, I think it was a week ago or two. Anyway, I tweeted the Los Angeles Rams before and by the way, before the Rams and the Saints have met each other last week, few days or hours before that game even started, I picked the Los Angeles Rams to represent the NFC to go to the Super Bowl against the Kansas City Chiefs, who I picked to represent the AFC to go to the Super Bowl. You know, facing each other in the Super Bowl, basically. I picked both of those teams, the Rams and the Chiefs, going up against each other in the Super Bowl. But after seeing the Saints beating the Rams, giving them their first loss of the season, as well as and yeah, I think I did a video on that. Drew Brees, Des Bryant signing a deal with the New Orleans Saints. That was when I was like, I originally was picking the Rams to represent the NFC to go to the Super Bowl against the Chiefs. But after seeing Des Bryant signing with the Saints, I gotta admit to you, I'm not so sure the Rams are going to represent the NFC to go to the Super Bowl. That was what I said in my reaction video to Dez Bryant signing with the Saints. That was what I said. That basically tells you how legit the New Orleans Saints are. They're not to be ignored. They're not to be trifled with, like I mentioned earlier. I mean, they're just no joke. They can really play. They can really play football. They can play real football, especially this season. I mean, they've proven that time and time and time again. Even though the defense, at times, at certain points of the season, haven't proven that very much. But I will say that the New Orleans Saints, the question that came to my mind while doing this episode is, am I still picking the? And I got a couple of questions. Am I still picking the New Orleans Saints to go to the NFC Championship game? Yes, I am. Absolutely. Another question that I have in my mind is, am I still picking them to face the Los Angeles Rams once again in a rematch within the NFC Championship game? Yes, I am. Certainly. Now after saying that, that just reminds me of something. In my reaction video, going back to that, my reaction video to Dez Bryant signing with the Saints from a few days ago, I got a couple of comments from some people saying that that the Saints have already beaten the Rams. And I was thinking to myself, yeah, so? And now, granted, I did watch the video and I realized that I said that the Saints will face the Rams again. I thought I was being very clear on that, but apparently some people didn't think. Some people think otherwise. After that video. So let me be very, very clear. I was talking about the New Orleans Saints and the Los Angeles Rams facing each other once again. I picked the New Orleans Saints and the Los Angeles Rams to face each other once again. And in the NFC Championship game. That was what I was originally, or that was what I meant to say, but I didn't exactly said that. So I just want to make that very clear for everybody who made some comments on that video I made. Just to clear some people's minds or memories. So yeah, I am picking the New Orleans Saints to go to the NFC Championship game. And not only that, I'm picking the New Orleans Saints to face the Los Angeles Rams once again. And I picked them to face each other again. This time, or the second time, in the NFC Championship game. That is where I'm picking them to go face each other at. In an NFC Championship game that is a rematch to that Week 9 matchup that the Saints have beaten the Rams in, 45-35. Yeah, so I just want to make that perfectly clear for everybody. And I hope that they get it. But anyway, guys, those are my thoughts on the New Orleans Saints' dominant road win against the Cincinnati Bengals. 51-14 was the final score of the game. The New Orleans Saints dismantled the Cincinnati Bengals 51-14 at their home turf. My God. The New Orleans Saints are something special. Do I think that they will go to the Super Bowl and represent the NFC? My answer to that question is I don't know. I don't know if they could. I mean, with Los Angeles Rams, although the Saints have beaten the Rams, I'm not ignoring that. Don't get me wrong. I do know that the Saints have beaten the Rams, who originally were considered to be the best team in the NFC. But again, Super Bowl for the Saints? I don't know. We'll just have to wait till later on in the season, probably near the end of the season. Probably about few of the last weeks of the NFL season, this NFL season. But anyway, guys, again, those are my thoughts on the New Orleans Saints dismantled the Cincinnati Bengals 51-14. If you guys enjoyed this episode, please click the like button, and if you have already watched the game, comment below and let me know what you think, and let me know in the comment section below. Do you think that the New Orleans Saints will go to the Super Bowl to represent the NFC against the Kansas City Chiefs, or do you think that they will face the Los Angeles Rams once again, but the second time being in the NFC Championship game? Let me know in the comment section below of what you think. And if you enjoyed what you've seen here and you want to see future videos from me, please press the subscribe button and turn on that notification bell so that you never miss a video. And I will see you guys in the next video. Have a great week, Battle Squad, and as always, fight the good fight.